Greedfall is developed by Spiders. No, not the spooky boys, but a development team located in France. The reason I bring this up is they are practically an indie development team, and to create the game that they have, despite all its flaws, is still quite impressive. They created a pretty decent game that definitely flew under the radar for a lot of people. This game has a nostalgic charm to it. It's like a throwback to RPG games of old, to games like the original Fable. You play as the young de Sade, a noble of the Congregation of Merchants who travels to the newly settled island of Tirfredi, in search of a cure for disease in your own homeland. You're the cousin of the prince of the Congregation of Merchants and immediately become the errand boy of the island, as you set off to discover each other settlement of the Ptolemy and the Bridge Alliance. If you find this hard to follow, believe me, so did I. Not knowing the names of the people and places definitely left me confused at some points in the early parts of the game. But overall, it didn't affect my enjoyment with the story as it all kind of came together later on anyways. The game has a relationship system that affects both your party as well as each of the factions, meaning your decisions and choices during quests and while out exploring affect each nation. While I wasn't able to find any major changes, one thing that did help from having a good relationship with a nation was your ability to fast track and skip parts of quests, which I think is a really cool feature. It gave a reason to try and befriend all the nations while out exploring. To add to this, you also have the relationship with your party members. However, I didn't see any real beneficial reason for having this relationship except you get to marry them, which is a shame because I think there was potential to maybe affect how each party member performs and acts in combat based on your friendliness with them. But I will say, one of my absolute favourite features of this system was that depending on who you took with you to do certain quests, it would actually affect the quest itself, and may result in some party members disliking you for your actions, which is a really nice touch. It definitely makes you have to think about who you're taking with you to do certain activities and quests. It makes the game far more interesting, especially for replayability. Now let's get on to the combat in this game. Now the combat itself is rather unpolished and can be frustrating at times. I hated moments where I was consistently getting knocked down and unable to move because of the game's clunkiness. At the start of the game, you get to choose from 3 classes essentially, a mage, a warrior, and a marksman, and you're able to change this at any point later if you feel like it. Now, as mentioned earlier, you have different party members, but can only choose 2 others at a time, meaning that if you know what you're up against, it's important to change your party members to suit the quest you're going on. I think all the companions are unique enough to the point where you can make some very strong and interesting combinations, which make the combat much easier for yourself, but also not an entire pushover, which I honestly like. And these aren't just weak companions either. They only ever really died when I was close to death myself. The combat system also has a tactical pause, which is just like going into the main menu and using your abilities from the menu. Kind of like in Skyrim until you learn there's a faster way to do it. Now, I'm not really a fan of this kind of combat, but I ended up just setting everything important to various buttons that can be used quickly in combat and only ever really paused to actually use something I didn't have on my hotkeys. Now, I'd recommend trying to play the game without the tactical pause as it makes the game a lot more challenging, but also a lot more rewarding when you finally beat the big bosses or get past a group of enemies that you were struggling on before. Okay, overall, the game has a huge focus on narrative and character arcs, which really shines through in my opinion. Each of the side quests could be a main story in another game. There is that much detail and depth. However, this does come at a cost. I found it very annoying, especially towards the end of the game, as I started to sit through what felt like cutscenes and conversations that would last several years. Now, I have nothing against lengthy cutscenes, but these just seem to drag on for an eternity. So, the game's relationship system is definitely the focus of a lot of the story, and it definitely creates a fun system where I was consistently trying to balance my actions and would often be thinking of the bigger picture. It just helped to immerse me further into the game. The combat system, on the other hand, is very lackluster. It's nothing like what you'd get in many other adventure games. It's unpolished and frustrating at times, but the companion system and the wide variety of approaches makes it somewhat interesting. Overall, Greedfall is an exceptional game, but I can only really recommend it to you if you're interested in more old school RPG games. It just lacks many features that the modern RPG games have, and it's a real shame. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you could comment your thoughts on the video, be it feedback or game recommendations, it would be very much appreciated, as well as like and subscribe to help grow the channel.